This is Blade Rondo for Frostveil Game Manual Reading. Some new updates. Glaciate has been added to Game of Effects and Glossary. Detailed rules have been updated, and the new solo game rules have been added as well. Blade Rondo Frostveil is a fast-paced card-based clash of swords and sorcery for 1 to 2 players, with 7 chosen swords in hand. Face your opponent on the field of battle. Reduce their life to 0 to be declared the winner. To get started, read to learn the rules for a 2-player game. The additional rules for a solo game are covered later in the rulebook, but don't skip ahead unless otherwise posted. You'll need to know the basics first. Setting up. Number 1, set up your area as shown below. Attribute dice, place each die in the circle matching the color, with the 0 facing up. The red die tracks your attack, the green die tracks your voltage, and the blue die tracks your defense. Life stones placed at the 15 mark. Breath control, place the enkindle and 1 in armor card face up in front of you. If you're a first time player, skip to number 28 before reading further. The bad blood between Maria and Sonya knows no bounds. No matter the time or place, they will strike at even the smallest opening. Take up their swords and attack without hesitation. Determine who will play as Maria and who will play as Sonya. Take the 10 cards listed below for your character. Maria's Sword 1, Frozen Flamebridge. 2, Ashen Analyst. 3, Bone Crusher Bludgeon. 4, Icicle Galanthus. 4, Violet Vortex. 6, Spiral Sage. 7, Chilling Growl. 8, Howling Crescendo. Ow! 9, Restraining Siphon. 10, Aerial Opal. Sonya 1, Snow-Capped Spittoon. 2, Vanguard Verdun. 3, Iris Tempest. 4, Hydrina Hexblade. 5, Fruiting Dulce. 6, Meditating Campanella. 7, Ambling Refrain. 8, Engraving Lament. 9, Limpid Moonstone. 10, Warming Amber. Shuffle your 10 cards, then choose 7 at random to build your hand. Set aside the 3 remaining cards without showing them to your opponent. Follow steps 1 and 4 as described from page 5 to set up your area. You are now ready to begin the match. Once a winner has been decided, play a second game with the same set of 10 cards, but this time choose the 7 cards to build your own hand. Shuffle the 40 sword cards, then deal 15 to each player face down. The 10 remaining cards won't be used in this match. Return them to the box without looking at them. Choose 7 of your 15 cards to build your hand for the match. The 8 remaining cards won't be used in this match. Return them to the box without showing them to your opponent. Randomly determine which player will go first. The player going second takes the Quicken card, places it face up in front of them, and increases their attack to 1. Once both players are ready, the battle can begin. These are the sword cards. Want to battle using your favorite swords? If both players own a copy of this game, you may each prepare a hand of 7 sword cards to use in the match. Your hand may include up to 2 copies of a card with the same name. When playing with this variant, skip steps 2 and 3 described above. Turn overview. You and your opponent will alternate taking turns until one of you is victorious. Each turn consists of the following 3 steps. 1. Upkeep. At the beginning of your turn, increase your voltage by 1. Voltage cannot exceed 9. If your voltage is already at 9 at the beginning of your turn, you suffer a voltage burst and lose a life. Resolve your beginning of turn bonded effects. See bonded on page 13. Play this card normally. If its bonded effect is resolved, place it in the specified player's set area. That player gains the effects described on this card for as long as it remains in their set area. Although cards with bonded effects have a limited icon, do not discard them at the end of the turn. Bonded effects are not considered actions and cannot be responded to. You may resolve the effects of glaciated cards in your set area. This may also be done during the action setup. Resolve your familiar's beginning of turn effects. See familiar on page 14. Resolve these in order. If two or more effects are resolved at the same time, the active player may decide the order in which to resolve them. Familiar, a card placed in your set area via a summon familiar name effect. Play one or more cards from your hand. The total cost of your cards you play cannot exceed your voltage. How to use a card. Choose a breath control card from your breath control area or a sword card from your hand and place it in your play area. If you choose a gambit card, place it face down, otherwise place it face up. The number in the top left corner of the card indicates the cost you must pay to play it. Your voltage does not decrease when you play a card. Instead, it serves to indicate the maximum total cost you can spend on your turn. All gambit cards have a cost of 1, and an armor cost is however much you choose to pay. If you played a card face up, resolve its effects. Cleanup. At the end of your turn, move all face-up cards with a limited icon in your play area to your discard pile. Return all other face-up cards in your play area to your hand. Return all breath control cards in your play area to your breath control area. Your opponent returns all face-down cards in their play area to their hand. Adjusting attributes and life values. When one of your attributes changes, turn the corresponding die so that the number facing up reflects the new value. When your current life increases or decreases, move your life stone to the appropriate space. Attributes have a maximum value of 9, and life has a maximum value of 15. However, some sword cards have effects that can allow you to temporarily exceed your maximum attack or defense values. Should this happen, do not adjust your attribute dice. The game area. Set area, place familiars and cards with the bonded effects there. Breath control area, place your breath control cards there. In play area, place the cards you play on your turn there. Card overview. You will find the following information on breath control and sword cards. The card name, the cost you must pay to play this card. Limited icon cards bearing this icon are discarded if they are in a player's play area at the end of their turn. Discipline symbol indicates which discipline this card belongs to. Effect, text explaining what this card does when used. Unless there is a specific discipline symbol listed to the left of the effect, it shares the discipline symbol shown in the top right of the card. Flavor text, excerpts from stories or legends that have no effect on the gameplay. At the bottom of each card, you will find its card number as well as the name of its illustrator. This information has no impact on the game. Card disciplines. The actions used in this game are divided into 5 disciplines. While card disciplines does not affect how it is played, it shows what kind of effects it is likely to have. Physical. Simple strike with a solid steel. The strength of a card's physical attack is determined by your attack attribute. Magical. No shield can stop a mage's craft. Magical attacks ignore your opponent's defense attributes when dealing damage. Assist. Turn the tide's battle in your favor. Assist cards provide a variety of beneficial effects such as restoring life or increasing your attributes. Some will even let you summon familiars to aid you in battle. Gambit. Never let your foe catch you unawares. Gambit cards have effects that allow you to react to your opponent's actions. Special. The power to do the unexpected. Special cards offer you a choice of different effects. And then the breath control. Empower yourself through controlled breathing techniques. These cards are kept in your breath control area and are used to increase your attributes. You will always have a copy of Enkindle or an armor. The player going second will also have access to Enquicken. Effects keywords. The following keywords are used to describe certain card effects. Physical. Deal damage to your opponent equal to your attack attribute or that of the attacking familiar minus your opponent's defense. Magical. Deal X damage to your opponent. Summon familiar name. When you play this card, place it face up in your set area as a familiar with the name, attributes, and effects described on the card. Although cards with this effect have a limited icon, do not discard them at the end of your turn. Use the familiar's attack attributes when it performs physical attack. You may use the familiar's defense attribute in place of your own when your opponent or one of their familiars performs a physical attack. Response. When you play this card, place it in your play area face down. At the end of your turn, it does not return to your hand, nor is it discarded. During your opponent's turn, if they perform an action with a discipline symbol that matches one of the symbols listed to the right of the response keyword on your face down gambit card, you may choose to turn your gambit card face up and resolve its effects. When using more than one gambit card in response to an opponent's action, turn your gambit cards face up and resolve their effects one at a time in the order of your choosing. At the end of your opponent's turn, discard any gambit cards you used. Return gambit cards that you didn't use and are still face down to your hand. Secondary. If this effect dealt at least one damage to your opponent, resolve its effects. Hone. When you play this card, you choose to resolve its hone effects before paying its cost. Using card's hone effects is optional. Tribute. Resolve this effect when you pay the cost to use this card. This effect is mandatory and must be resolved. Glaciate. When you play this card, do not resolve its effects. Instead, place it in your set area at the end of your turn. On a later turn, you may turn this card sideways at any point during your turn to resolve its effects, excluding Glaciate, for no cost. If it has a limited icon, discard this card at the end of the turn on which you resolved its effects. Otherwise, return it to your hand. Glossary. You refers to the player who used the card. In this case, if of a bonded effect, it refers to a player who gained the bonded effect. Action. The use of any card or card effect with a discipline symbol. Attack. A type of action that has either physical or magical discipline symbol. The icy mist is both an attack and an action. Negate. Cancel the effects of a card or action except for its tribute, which must still be paid. If a card's effect is negated, its cost is not refunded, and if the negated card has a limited icon, it is discarded at the end of the turn. Take/deal damage. Taking/dealing damage causes the affected player to reduce their current life. Losing life is not the same thing as taking damage, and therefore effects that state lose X life cannot be affected damage modifying effects. Respond. The use of a face-down gambit card in your play area during your opponent's turn in response to an action performed by your opponent or one of their familiars. In order to use a gambit card, one of the discipline symbols listed to the right of the response effect must match the discipline symbol of the action you are responding to. When a gambit card is used, it is turned face up and its effect is resolved before your opponent resolves the actions you responded to. Glaciate. Place the card in your set area as long as it remains in your set area. The card is considered to be glaciated. Place no captive platoon in your set area when you resolve its secondary effect. On a later turn, you may turn it sideways to resolve its effects again. May perform the following action. Perform the action described below. If no cost is shown, the action may be performed for a cost of 0. Obliterating Wedge has a cost of 0, so Aerial Opal may not be used in response. Detailed rules. This section is an expert that provides an in-depth explanation of the rules of Blade Rondo Frostveil. You do not need to read this section before playing the game. Instead, refer to it while playing to answer any questions that may arise. 1. Hand refers to the sword cards you have in your hand. It does not include breath control cards or sword cards that placed in your play area or set area. Attributes. If an effect that changes your attributes specifies a duration such as until the end of the turn, do not adjust your attribute dice. These effects can cause your attributes to temporarily exceed the maximum value of 9. Example, if a player with an attack of 9 plays De Springtanta, their attack would increase to 11 until the end of the turn. Damage. When an effect that deals damage is negated, not negated, that is handled separately by an opponent's defense or other means. It's still considered to have dealt damage even though that value is 0. Example, player A has an attack of 0. On his turn, he plays Crushing Claymore. His opponent, player B, has a defense of 2. She takes 0 damage from the attack. Player A then uses Luminescent effect to increase the damage taken by 1. As Crushing Claymore's attack has now dealt at least 1 damage, player A resolves its secondary effect. Losing life is not the same thing as taking damage. As such, luminescent effects cannot be used when a player loses life due to poison or voltage burst. Respawns. When resolving the effects of face-down gambit cards, choose one to turn up and resolve its effects before deciding whether or not to use another face-down gambit card. Gambit card's effects can only be resolved during your opponent's turn. Unless it is specifically stated, cards without a response effect cannot be used in the response to and be resolved before an opponent's actions. Cards without a response effect cannot be placed face down in your play area, except when performing a support draw in a solo game. Using cards. Players use breath control and sword cards by placing them in their play area. Some cards have effects that are resolved as though the card was newly placed in their owner's play area. Example, player A may choose to use Dancing Dagger's effect to use the card again in step 15 and 5-2 overleaf. If they do, they resolve the attack again beginning from step 1. Attacks are resolved in the following order. Resolve the card's own effect if desired. Pay the cost to use the card. If the card has a tribute effect, resolve it at this time. If the attack is negated by any ongoing effects, do not perform the following steps, such as by Wandering Topaz. If the defending player has any face-down gambit cards, they may turn them face-up and resolve their effects. Effects that adjust the amount of damage dealt or state at the end of the attack are not resolved at this time. Resolve effects that state before resolving this attack, such as Finaleria. The attacking player determines their attack or the attack of the attacking familiar. Include the effects of cards such as Dayspring Cantata. Resolve effects that increase the attacking player's attack. Resolve effects that double the attacking player's attack. The defending player determines the defense. Include the effects of cards such as Moonlight Retail. The defending player may choose to use a familiar's defense attributes instead of their own. Resolve effects that adjust the defending player's defense or the defense of their chosen familiar. Calculate the base damage, physical attack or magical attack. Resolve effects that adjust the amount of damage dealt, such as Sacrificial Tourmaline. Resolve effects that decrease the amount of damage dealt. If this results in a negative number, the attack deals 0 damage. Resolve effects that double or quadruple the amount of damage dealt. Resolve effects that state changing the amount of damage dealt by the attack. The defending player may decide the order in which these effects are resolved. The attacking player may use Luminescent. The defending player may use Luminescent. The defending player decreases their life equal to the amount of damage they were dealt. Resolve secondary effects. Resolve effects that state at the end of the attack, such as Warding Agate. The defending player may decide the order in which they are resolved. Resolve effects that state after resolving this attack or immediately after resolving this attack, such as Dancing Dagger. Cards with bonded or summoning effects. You may have multiple bonded effects with the same name. Some effects cause cards with bonded or summon effects to be placed outside the set area. Do not resolve those cards, bonded or summon effects in such cases, and exclude them from the effects of cards that would reference their type or otherwise count them. Even if the effects of cards with bonded or summon effects are negated, they may still be referenced for other cards' effects. Example, a player may choose to use Dancing Dagger's effect to use the card again at step 15 and 5-2 overleaf. If they do, they resolve the attack again beginning from step 1. Familiars. Opponents always refer to a player, not a familiar. Example, player A's Minotaur familiar uses Bull Rush. Their opponent, player B, responds with Misty Pearl. Player A must pay 1 cost or the Bull Rush attack is negated. Glaciate. Playing a card with Glaciate effects from your hand and resolving the effect of glaciated card in your set area are both considered actions, so your opponent may use gambit cards in response. When resolving the effects of a glaciated card in your set area, you may resolve any hone effects it may have if desired. When resolving the effects of a glaciated card in your set area, do not resolve any tribute effects it may have. Setting up a solo game. Assorting Sonya is your opponent for this solo game. Set up your area in Sonya's area as described from page 5. Place the Sonya card in Sonya's action room. Sonya does not use breath control cards. Shuffle the 40 sword cards, then draw 15 cards. Choose 7 of them to build your hand for the match. Return the remaining sword cards to the box. Remove the 4 gambit cards from Sonya's sword cards. Shuffle the 10 remaining cards, then draw 5 cards and place them face up in Sonya's action room, in order from lowest to highest initiative. If multiple cards share the same initiative, place them in the order they were drawn. Shuffle the 4 Sonya gambit cards, then draw 2 and place them in Sonya's response room in the order they were drawn. Sonya will go first and you will go second. Take the Enquicken card, place it face up in front of you, and increase your attack to 1. You are now ready to begin the match. You win if you can reduce Sonya's life to 0 before she does the same to yours. Card overview. You will find the following information on Sonya's card. Card name, Sonya's base action, the name of the action Sonya uses every turn, flavor text, a line of dialogue that has no impact on the game, in effect, text explaining what Sonya's base action does. At the bottom of each card, you'll find the card number as well as the name of its illustrator. This information has no impact on the game. And then there's the back of Sonya's card. The back of her card shows the summary of her turn. You'll find the following information on Sonya's sword cards: the discipline, the card name, the initiative. When Sonya's voltage is equal to or greater than this card's initiative, resolve this card's effect. Gambit cards do not have an initiative. Instead, their effects are resolved when triggered as described on the card. Limited icon. Cards bearing this icon are discarded at the end of the turn on which they are used. In the back of her sword card. This is Maria's sword card. We're fucking on Sonya. Somebody had an error. Error in translation. Solo game area. See all that fun stuff. I'll let you read it. Solo game rules. As in 2-player match, you will alternate taking turns with your opponent Sonya. See turn page on 7. Sonya will go first and you will go second. Sonya's rules. Sonya's attack and defense and voltage start at 0 and her life starts at 15. Sonya has an action row which contains the Sonya card and 5 Sonya sword cards. If Sonya uses a card with a limited icon, discard that card at the end of her turn. On Sonya's turn, perform the following 2 steps in order. Resolve the upkeep step described in page 7, starting with her voltage. Resolve the effects of all the cards in action row in an initiative less than or equal to Sonya's voltage in order from left to right, starting with enhance. For example, in the image on page 25, Sonya would perform enhance, icicle cannon thus, and then snow-capped spittoon. On the turn, her voltage becomes 5. Each time you and your familiars perform an action with a discipline symbol that matches one of the symbols listed to the right of the response effect on one or more cards in Sonya's response row, resolve the effects of those cards in order from left to right. If Sonya's action is glaciated, it remains in her action row instead of moving it to her set area. If Sonya's attack Sonya using Bone Crusher Bludgeon, use the damage dealt when the quadrupled to determine whether or not Sonya responds with Restraining Siphon. If you attack Sonya using Bone Crusher Bludgeon, first resolve the effects of her gambit cards. Then, if the damage dealt would still reduce Sonya's life to 0 when quadrupled, discard the first 2 sword cards to the right of Sonya's card in her action row and double the damage dealt instead. If the damage dealt would leave Sonya with at least 1 life when quadrupled, or if Sonya has less than 2 sword cards in her action row, Sonya takes the quadruple damage. Player rules. Some sword cards have alternate effects during a solo game, as described below. Vanguard Verdun. Physical, secondary. You may choose a card in Sonya's action row with an initiative of X or less. Discard that card. X is double the amount of damage dealt by this attack. Aerial Opal responds to physical, assist, and magical. If the action is Sonya's final action this turn, negate the action. Now, last part. You may combine Blade Rondo Frostveil with Blade Rondo for the more strategic and complex gaming experience. 1. Create 2 piles of 40 swords, each containing 1 copy of every sword card from Blade Rondo and Blade Rondo Frostveil. 2. Take one of the piles and remove 5 sword cards you don't want your opponent to use, then hand the remaining 35 cards to your opponent. 3. Simultaneously reveal the 5 cards you removed and then choose 7 of the 35 cards you were handed to build your hand for the match. Then follow steps 1 and 5 as described from page 5 to set up your area. You are now ready to begin the match. Thanks for listening. One day the muses will come to you in your dreams, transverse the hills of deception, and throw wide the portal of truth.